Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay, so first of all, thank you for accepting my talk. Wilson? And now? So thank you to the committee for accepting my talk. Thank you all for being here at this time. We are almost heading to the tavern after, so let's first talk a bit about Tavern Crawler, what it is, and it's basically just a way to enable fast and easy development of automated APIs. So who am I? Jorge Miranda. I'm a postdoc student at Aarhus University in Denmark, and I basically develop IoT applications mostly for healthcare and agriculture, mainly on Linux mainly Linux-based embedded systems. So I have my contacts if you want to reach me. Otherwise, I'll be available throughout the whole conference. Who knows who Tavern is? Okay. So my suspicions were correct. I couldn't also find many information about Tavern except that Tavern exists. And what is Tavern? It's a PyTest plugin, command line tool, and Python library to automate HTTP and MQTT APIs testing. That's what it is. But it does alleviate the load of writing very repetitive code, because that's what happens, or at least that's what was happening to me when I was writing integration tests. Rewriting again and again and again, same thing, and is the client well implemented? Oh no, it's throw an exception here. Oh, I forgot this and that. So this library alleviates that load for us. And it does that by specifying the tests in YAML. We'll see examples. We'll do a live demo of Tavern Crawler, so you'll see how then the workflow works with the YAML. And most important thing, this is taken directly from the Tavern website, is not a replacement for Postman or Insomnia or PyRest test or any other tool. It's very focused on being a file first approach, and then you just use PyTest to run it. Here is an example, very simple example of Tavern tests. That's what you do. You specify a name for it, and then you can have several stages. This one is quite simple. You make get requests, and you get a response back. Stages allows you to make, well, stages for the request. Like, for example, first you need to log in. Okay, you log in, and then you make the request. And then if you want, you can log out. So this is the very, very simple test. We'll see more evolved tests and eventually what led to developing the extension. What are the main problems? Well, files quickly grow to hundreds of lines. And the case that started all of this is 4 files, each with roughly 800 lines of code each, which was to 3,000 something lines in the end of YAML that you had to scroll back up and down and all that stuff. And the YAML extension in VSCode wasn't really being helpful. And that, why those files grow? Multiple stages. See, the example here just has 1 stage, but if you have 2, then all of these will be duplicated. 3 stages, duplicated, and so on. The request payload creation. Right here, we don't send any payload, but the next thing that makes it or increase the test size is the payload we receive that we want you want to verify. And that's what happens here with the JSON ID. In this case, I just want to verify the ID of the post that it is one. If it's not, the test will fail. If it is one, the test passes. And the second main problem was long and difficult output to read output logs, because, well, scroll was my friend and not a very good friend. So I just had to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. And I was dying inside every time I had to scroll one more time. And that's in that dark place I was, where I headed to the tavern, and just, this is a tale. So they had always a bit of a life in it. Had some drinks, beers, and some whiskey, and so I realized, well, why don't I do it myself? That's a stupid idea, because as Tom just said in this morning, coding is pain. But that's why we should never take these kind of decisions when we are there. A bit of a side, why Tavern Crawler? I thought, okay, let's use Portuguese names. Tasca. But Tasca, so that you know it, it's a brand that makes optics, rifles and binocles, telescopes, all that stuff. So Tasca is out. It's very similar to Tasca also. Tasca, you know, Tavern Tracker. I used it for a while, but it's not really hitting. Tavern Tracker, for the Tracker fans. And my personal favorite, which was Khalidas Tascas. Sorry for all the foreigners, it's basically pub crawl. And that's where the name comes from, really. It's pub crawl, where you just go through one test and another and another and another and another and another and another and so on. So you crawl basically through all the tests. That's why it's called Tavern Crawler. What is Tavern Crawler? It's a Visual Studio code extension. Why Visual Studio? That's the IDE I use. I see already many of you use it also. And initially, I started developing it to address the two main issues. The navigation and throughout the tests, and then interpret the test results. That's when I start to give value to the test window on VSCode. You see all the tests with green and red and all that stuff. So that was the first thing. The scrolling is not the way to do it, definitely. The second purpose is to accelerate writing the tests, because in the end it was being repetitive, just writing always the same thing. And what you do when you have to write always the same thing, just change one field or another, you copy paste. Copy paste is what? Error prone. So we should never do it, but we do it still. And most important, the main philosophy is still to be the text file first. So everything is to write these text files faster, not to have an UI to replace Postman or Insomnia. Those are great tools. I use them in parallel also. Just one simple example: if I receive a 500 exception and the server sends the HTML, I can see in trouble. In Tavern. I just have to rely on Postman, and it's excellent for that. That's it. Now let's go for a demo. I hope the bugs stay away. So this first example, it's not this one. This one. First example. First example is to retrieve a post from this dummy API, which is available online to anyone. And it's very simple. Well, it's actually the same example I just showed you. You might already notice the familiarity with the tests interface. I don't have any tests here. But you have one icon available here, and that's the application. And then you have all tests listed. In this case, we just have 2 tests, so 2 tests here. And again, if you want to run the tests, press run, and you have the results. All green. Great. So the 2 main issues were already sort of addressed, where we can navigate through the files. For example, if I want to go to the second stage, the cursor immediately went to this line, this one, and we have output. Everything is done. Not really. As I said, writing this sort of tests becomes repetitive. If you see, these tests are basically the same thing. This one is a get, this one is a post. So what comes next? Accelerate writing the tests. And that's when have some snippets where you basically fill the name, the name of the stage, very creative name, stage 1, the URL, the method you want. You suggest some methods to the HTTP methods, and the code. So let's create another fake post. So basically replicate what's over here. And there it goes. And now you see we have 3 tests. And if we run it, oh, we have an error. Okay. We can immediately see what was the error over here. Just place the mouse on top. And we can see that the ID is different, of course, because it should be so 101 full bar. Right. Thank you. And now it passes. Okay. So this already helps accelerate writing tests. Great. Then if we need to add another stage, for example, assess, check that that it was created. Let's make a GET request. And you see, we added a new stage over here. So and that's right. And because ID is 102, 101. Okay. And it passes. Okay. So this really helped accelerate writing the tests. Now, another thing I want to show. Okay. Let's make a quick stop because I have the bar. Okay. It's not running bash script, just to be clear. But that's how it all started. And we'll get a bit later on why, well, the command is too long, okay? I couldn't remember it, so I just created a bash script to run this every single time. It's sort of clunky. I usually say that bash script is the duct tape, at least for Linux. And although you can do marvelous things with it, but it's not really the way to do it. But I'm showing this just to give some clues how everything works underneath. So we run PyTests, we give over here what we want to run. Can be a file, can be a node ID, can be a test name. It generates an XML, a JUnit XML file. And over here, we just ignore the warnings, because if we don't ignore the warnings, the output, which you can see it here, just gets even bigger. So this is what the running this command outputs, actually. Of course, these were not generated by the bash. If you have any questions, raise your hand, okay? Maybe it's better to go iteratively throughout the talk, okay? One of the advantages of Tavern is that it supports MQTT. We can make the same things for MQTT requests. Structure is basically the same, just changes what the way it is invoked in the beginning. Instead of having over here request URL methods and all stuff, we just set up the client, the MQTT client, and we make the requests. And we can even simulate publishing and waiting for a response. Another topic, or the same. So I promise some Python code. Basically, this is using just a pet store that I implemented for MQTT. So I'll run the MQTT client. So let's run it. And the tests pass. Okay. So we get 2 for 1, HTTP and MQTT, and you can see the results over here. Now, this is the basics of Tavern. I really like the way the guy who did it, which is called Michael Bolton. And it's not the singer with the blonde hair. It's a British guy from Bristol, I think. Very nice guy. Did all this work. So, but when you see 2 or 3 tests per file, why go throughout the work of writing an extension? And you see the mini map, right? That's the size of just of one file. 910 lines with 23 tests. That's a ton of tests. Just an aside, specific project I'm working currently is called Wodia, and is to investigate or try to predict if pregnant women might develop preeclampsia during the pregnancy. And how is that made? Basically, we monitor the blood pressure, and if it increases throughout a period of time, I think 10 weeks or something like that, the lady might be in risk of having preeclampsia, and the doctor can act. And this is for remote monitoring. So what we are investigating is basically deploying blood pressure monitors that connect through Bluetooth to a gateway, and then that gateway sends the measurements to the web service, and that's where everything comes in. Oh, this is a crude API with at least 4 sections, and what these sets do is basically go to each of the methods on that API. So let's run just this one. Well, while it runs, let's see how these tests start to differ from very simple ones I just showed you. So the first thing is including global variables, which is basically a YAML file with values that then we can use throughout the tests. Okay, so one less thing to repeat. The host is the same everywhere, so we just use that everywhere. The key token is the same. So tests are over, and you see the results here. That's when these things start to pay off, right? How many of you have hundreds or I don't know, thousands, it's an exaggeration, of tests in APIs? Right. We'll talk later. How do you manage that? Because I'm really curious about it. So you see the test already increased to roughly 20 lines, right? So let's go to this one, for example, which starts here and is roughly 40 lines. So roughly, the minimal HTTP text is 10 lines of code. This is 4 times more. And I was talking about multiple stages. I want to start cleanly. So create a device, then I check that is there, and then I claim the service. Or basically, I delete it from the service, so I always have a clean slate to test the request. I don't have the risk of, because I didn't leave it, it is there, I'm getting the get back with something that I didn't create. Someone like that. So I was talking about the global variables. You can use them here. That is the other thing that matters. Then marks, for example, for running the tests. That's another thing that can increase the size. Basically, you run a test by giving that mark. It filters the test. It's the minus k parameter in PyTest. Yeah. So that's I usually was running that. So it's much easier to just come here, say run this test. So you see how these tests can quickly increase. And one last thing I want to show is if you had parameters, and yes, it comes from the parameterized from PyTest, suddenly you increase the number of tests. For example, this one is not 1 test, it's 4 tests. So but you can duplicate that, you can give even more parameters, and suddenly, in this case, you have 8 tests. So in reality, the number here is not 23, it's 30 something tests. Okay. Any questions? So I start to feel that maybe it's all okay, but maybe something more to write tests, because I wrote this by hand, then I had some help from having the snippets, but we have stuff like Open API. And I thought, well, why don't I get a specification and generate the file from the specification if it is available? Let's hope. Good. So I just give the specification file. And bam. I have the whole specification here. I just generated all the tests for the pet store available in pet store. That's something. Okay. One thing that also helps throughout this is that it generated, for example, the models. In this case was an ID, name, category of the animal, some other things. It's not context aware right now. Actually, it's quite done. Just use a faker, generate fake data, and fill the models, and then create the Tavern file. So I just have to now start. The names of the Tavern files are usually .tavern.yaml. You name it whatever you want. I save it here and have all the tests here. Let's see how it goes. Some passed. Not bad for something generated on the fly. Right? Okay. Currently, this is what Tavern Crawler has available. Okay. Started a few months ago. So it's not very evolved. It has bugs. So, for example, the tree collapsing. Those breaks a bit my nerves, but I wanted to do other stuff first rather than address that small issue. But once you start writing these things, more and more ideas come out. Everybody felt that. We all develop code, so we know how it is. And what the future holds, I know these are just ideas that are appearing throughout the development. First one, have a schema interpreter, and that can open other things like report schema errors. I forgot something, for example, the URL in an HTTP request. Warn about repeated test names, for example, or invalid values. It happened to me that during copy paste, I had the same name. And what was happening? Well, it was the same, or the result was actually the result from the last test. Why? Because the PyTest node ID was the same than the other. So it would be really nice to have, hey, this name is repeated, please, or something else. Invalid values, for example, if I set off post, I write posta, it gives an error where you have, or should have one of those values, right? Valid HTTP. Right? Snippets for data models. So if I have a data model, why can't I just insert that data model? And the ones I showed you are really small. I'm not even verifying all properties, but it might be useful. Well, if you have a request with 30 fields or 50 or 100 fields, well, it becomes problematic, right? Because you have to write them all by hand. Well, automate that. Maybe refactor functionalities also. Extract variables, extract data models to the global variable file, for example, or even suggest when you open curly braces, start writing the variable. Oh, it's here in the global. Just fill this, right? Tab. That's our best friend. Generate Python code. I didn't show you. This time is getting short, but you can use Python code for verification and for generating data for the tests. So basically, you have a function that if you have really complicated verification, you just write Python code for that. And then you call that in the request, in the response section of the test, and passes the result and verifies in code. Import the sync API definitions. This is more because there is MQTT support, so it makes sense to have that import also. And improve the error reporting in the UI. Right now, we just have that small window. Some of it would be nice, even coloring, parsing the results would also be important. So, you know, there are all ideas that are coming to mind. And hopefully, throughout the next months, years, I'll be developing it. And I just want to say that we're all more than welcome to join. If for some reason you looked for a Tavern Crawler before today, well, I only made it available yesterday because, well, some of these features I ended up developing this week. That's the truth we all know, right? So, but it's available since yesterday. You can download it. You can download the V6 file. It's available in the releases on the right side of GitHub, and install it manually. Hopefully next week I'll make it available in Marketplace. And most important, it's a beta. Okay, so it might fail. For example, generating the values while importing the Open API, it's a risky thing. It might give false positives. So be very cautious on when using that feature, for example. But try it. I'm open to hearing from you. I use tests as I need because here implements tests every time. Raise your hands. Nobody lied, except I lied. And just give it a try. I'll love to hear from you. You lied. You implement every time. So thank you for listening, and